from this chart is to look within country at what happens from one generation to the next. So particularly for immigrants from Mexico, Central and South America, there's a big gain in terms of educational attainment. So the educational attainment between the immigrant generation and the second generation really jumps, much more so than is the case for immigrants from the other regions. Wages, you can see that wages pretty much mirror education. Not entirely, but wages will mirror education. So the higher education levels are, the higher wages are. And so you get particularly low wages for immigrants from Mexico, where education is relatively low. You get relatively high wages for immigrants from Europe and the UK, where educational attainment is on average higher than that for the native-born population. And again, you want to do both the comparison between the US native-born and the sending countries, and also the generation-by-generation comparison. Yes. Yeah, this is a weekly wage from the current population survey 1994 to 1996. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the questions that comes from this that we don't have an answer, I don't have an answer to. I'm sure somebody probably has answered it, but I don't know the answer, which is that, and what Ian pointed out, is that the one group where the educational attainment in the second generation is less than the educational attainment of the immigrant is the Asian population, Asian male. And yes, and why? And I don't know the answer to why. Well, the wage is going to follow education. Yeah. So presumably the education explains the wage, and not the other way around. Patrick. Okay. Yeah. Those immigrants. Yeah. Okay. So the wage explanation from the sociology class had to do with not just occupation, but particular tasks within occupation sets, and comparing Asian versus black versus white native born. And what I don't know, I've had students who look at this for term papers for Econ 154, teaching it next spring. Econometrics is a free read. I've had students look at this for Econ 154, and I can't remember what the results are. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think people in the back can hear. So one point that Peter's making, which is I had lots of articles to choose from for this part of the course, and the article I didn't choose to address this issue, which is that I have up here just Asian, and that there are substantial differences between various subsets of Asia. So particularly if you look at immigration from Vietnam and from Cambodia, you get and from Laos, you get very different patterns than you do for immigration from the rest of East Asia or from Southeast Asia. The other thing that you said doesn't jive with the educational attainment being lower for the second generation than the first, and so I'm not going to repeat the other part that you said. Okay, cool. All right. Okay. So let's look at the article by Feliciano, which focuses on immigrants from Mexico. And this chart is from her paper, just shows the Mexican immigrants as a percentage of the foreign-born population. She's taking her data from the census, and the census, as you may know, is a 100% sample. So when they do the census, they don't go house to house and say, are you here with papers or are you not here with papers? They don't really care whether you have papers or not. They just ask you a series of questions. And so whether people are documented or undocumented, authorized or unauthorized, are going to be caught in the census. And then the question is going to be, where are you from or where were you born? And that answer is given as well. When they take the census, they start out by sending out a census form that comes in the mail. And if you do not submit your census form and you do not respond to the mail request for that, then they hire people every year to go door to door and gather the information by hand. So the census is 100% complete. Pardon? Well, but what would you be lying about that matters for this? I mean, the question is how many people lie. If you lie and you say, I've been in the country for 5 years and you've really been in the country for 15 years, that's going to affect the results. If you lie and you say, I actually make $1,000 a month when you only make $400 a month, that's going to affect the results. But there's nothing in her analysis which is, are you a permanent legal resident or not? And in fact, I don't think that's one of the questions on the census form. So I don't think here it matters. The documentation status doesn't matter to the questions that are used from the census. No, but somebody from your household does. So the ages, there's one person from the household who fills out the census. It's not every individual in the household who fills it out. It's one person in the household fills it out for everybody who lives in the household. And the age group that she looks at in this work is 18 to 64. Everybody's in the census. So go to Ancestry.com and you can get a free 2 weeks enrollment in Ancestry.com, and you can go into the census and look up every bit of information you want about every one of your relatives from every census back to forever and ever, or my relatives or ever. Huh? Yeah. All right. Looked at male workers ages 18 to 64. The data is from the censuses. Page 21. Wages are, the question is what determines wages. There's going to be a set of personal characteristics, which are in the footnote to the slide that's coming up, which will be large enough for me to read in a few minutes, but I can't read it off my printout. I heard my title. Yes. We're doing the paper right now. Yes, this is Feliciano's paper. Ready, set? Okay. She's going to look at personal characteristics, which are listed in the next slide, and then has two dummy variables, whether or not somebody is an immigrant who's been in the country between 0 and 5 years, and whether or not somebody is an immigrant who's been in the country 6 years or more. So a distinction made between recent arrivals and longer-term arrivals. And then the issue is whether or not how long you've been in the country, controlling for all the other things that might affect wages, whether or not that matters to what your wage is. So the dependent variable is the log of the wage of each individual I in each period or year T. There's some constant term. And then there's a beta 1 times the x, and that's just a vector or a whole bunch of variables of personal characteristics, plus another coefficient. Good golly. Coefficient times the immigrants, the dummy variable for if you're an immigrant who's been here less than 5 years, plus another coefficient times the dummy variable if you're an immigrant who's been here more than 6 years or more. So the base here is native born. So we're comparing wages of native born with recent immigrants and longer term immigrants. Not sure. What do I want? Recent immigrants versus older? I want older. They're not necessarily older. Established? Sure. Okay. All right. What are the personal characteristics? Now I can read it. Experience, education, regional dummies, urban or rural. A dummy for Texas, because, well, I won't say. This is probably why we don't call them dummies anymore. Now we call them indicator variables. We used to call them dummies, and those of us in the business thought Texas dummy made perfect sense, but it has nothing to do with people from Texas and dummies. It's dummy variable for it. It's a 0, 1 variable to indicate whether or not looking at somebody from Texas. Also can include age, literacy, and marital status, and can include or exclude agricultural workers. So there's a lot of results in the paper. As always, I just choose some to look at to see whether or not it makes a difference. So what do we have? We've got standard errors in parentheses. That's right there in the title. And so we need to do our little math to figure out which of these numbers are statistically significant. Here we go. 53 over 12, greater than 2. Yes. 57 over 3, boy, is that one. I'm going to put 3 stars on that. 31 over 3, that's about 10. We'll put 3 stars on that one, too. 38 over 2, huge. 38 over 1, huge. Bottom line, 7 over 12. Nope. 6 over 2, yep. 15 over 2, yep. 14 over 2, yep. 23 over 1, yeah. 21 over 1, yep. Pretty good. All right. So 1910 results are from a combination of sources. She doesn't get as stronger results for 1910. I'm just going to set those aside. I don't want to worry about maybe it's a problem with the source. It could be a problem with the source. Let's not worry about it. What do we get? This is comparing the wages of native-born with immigrants. So the first question is, who's making more money, native-born or immigrants? Native-born. We know that because each one of these coefficients has a minus sign in front of it. So each one of these coefficients is saying, if I take a graph and I put the natural log of wages here, and I put some variable over here, let's say age or experience or something like that, and I come up with a graph that shows me how wages rise with wage, then I'm going to have one graph that's the graph for the native-born, and then the fact that there's a negative number here for these indicator or dummy variables means that this entire line shifts down for the foreign-born. That's what it means to have a negative coefficient on that indicator or dummy variable. For whom does that line shift down more? Recent immigrants or more established immigrants? M5 or M6? Recent. So that negative number is a larger negative number, it's smaller on the number line, but in absolute value it's larger. There is a more negative effect from being a recent immigrant than there is from being a more established immigrant. So I would actually have 3 lines here. Let me change colors just because I'm bored with that color. So I'd have a line in the middle, which would be immigrant 6 or more, and then a line at the bottom, which is the immigrant 5. So the data pretty well establishes that once we control for the variety of things that we think should influence wages, that immigrants from Mexico still have lower wages, all else constant, than immigrants from Mexico have lower wages, all else constant, than native-born Americans, native-born white Americans, and that the effect is greater for the recent immigrants than it is for the more established immigrants. The next question is why. So why does this wage gap exist? Economists like to look at education because they think education matters. Most of us are professors. We have this sort of vested interest in thinking that education matters. And so the question is whether or not this difference in education, the difference in wages can be explained by the differences in education. There's a table in the article, which I did not reprint here, that looks at how much of the gap in wages is explained by differences in education, and finds that the education actually over-explains the wage gap. That if you just looked at educational differences between native-born white males 18 to 64 and Mexican immigrant males ages 18 to 64, the differences in education would predict even larger gaps in wages than what are actually observed. So to say that the education over-explains the difference means that from education you would expect even larger wage gaps than what are actually observed. There is part of the wage gap that she cannot explain, and that's called the unexplained residual. The unexplained residual, the part of the wage gap that cannot be explained, varies from year to year and is something between 13 and 50%, 57%. Oh, I don't know. Interesting question. Rachel's question is how much of the overprediction of the wage gap has to do with the fact that there's a minimum wage that provides a floor? No idea. She excludes agricultural workers, so that's one way of trying to limit it to jobs where the minimum wage would be enforced. Let me go back to this. 1965. There's the immigration reform. Don't know. Yeah. I drew that line there to distinguish between before and after 1965. So, all right. So what's what can we say about the differences in education? And here is a table that I was referring to earlier in answer to Patrick's question, where what we're going to do is we're going to compare the educational attainment of the immigrants from Mexico with 2 different other populations. We're going to compare the educational attainment of Mexican immigrants with the educational attainment of U.S. natives, and we're going to compare the educational attainment of Mexican immigrants with Mexican natives. These differences are the native-born minus the immigrants. So if it's a positive number, it means the native-born have higher educational attainment than the immigrants do. If it's a negative number, it means the immigrants have a higher educational attainment than the native-born do. What do we see? We see that in every year, there's no coefficient there, which means, or no sign there, which means it's positive. In every year, the difference between the U.S. natives and the Mexican immigrants is positive, which means that in every one of these census years, 1940 to 1990, the native-born white males, 18 to 64, have on average higher educational attainment than the Mexican immigrants in the sample. At the same time, in the next column, every one of these numbers is negative, which says that the Mexican immigrants to the United States, male ages 18 to 64, on average have higher educational attainment than do those who remain in Mexico. So the selection bias is the people who are migrating have on average higher education than the population they leave behind. So it's the more educated individuals who are choosing to leave, even though that means they're coming into a country where they now have on average less education than the native-born population. I doubt it, but I'll try. So the takeaway is that the Mexican immigrants in these samples, which is 40, 60, 70, 80, and 90 census years, on average have more education than the population they leave behind in Mexico. So they're the more educated on average of the Mexican population. But that higher educational attainment relative to the Mexican population still leaves them on average with lower educational attainment than the American native-born white male 18 to 64 population. All my qualifiers. Okay. Oh, good, perfect. All right. Last time, we put our timeline on the board, which was fab, and I will somehow figure out how to get those pictures so that you can see them. And then I said I wanted you to talk in your groups about what you know about why your family came. So you may be in different groups, many of you sit in the same place every time, so you may be in the same group. Where we're going over the next 15 or longer minutes, depending upon whether or not somebody shows up to do evaluations, is we're going to fill in the following 3 slides. One is Well, wait. In all of these, in the 3 slides that we're going to fill in, we want to talk about both present-day immigration and in the past immigration. So we talked about immigration at several different points in the course. And what we're looking for is what are the common themes and what are the things that are different. So what are the things that are the same and what are the things that differ. So we've seen these slides before. We're going to do them again. But now we're going to do them both. We're going to have, after each thing that you have me write down, you're going to tell me whether this is just historical, in which case I'll put an H after it, or whether it's both historical and contemporary, in which case I'll put an H and C after it. So we're going to have 3 slides. What's the goal? So why is it that people up and move? What's their goal? What are the push factors and the pull factors? So push, pull. The goal may be, this is where we had trouble before, was distinguishing the goal and the push and the pull. The goal is something that's broadly spoken, broadly stated. So the goal could be greater educational opportunities for my children. The goal could be political freedom, something like that. Okay. And then the third is, are there any behavioral assumptions? Are there any assumptions that we need to make in order to tell a complete story about immigration? Okay, those are 3 we got. So what you're doing in groups is the second piece from last week. Talk about what you know about why your family came. Same groups as before. So along here, a row equals a group. Turn around or lean forward if you're all by yourself. Along here, it was around 4 people or so was a group. You guys are already kind of subdivided, so you don't care anymore what I say. Around 4 people here was a group. Around 4 people here was a group. Y'all are groups. Go ahead.
Mena hasn't, you're supposed to be doing our emails and email back.
Who is this?
Mena, you're the runner from Pedagogy.
Yes.